What's up, everybody? This is Lisa Lozano with Global Fight Talk, and I have what I would say the famous referee here, the one who has officiated so many famous fights, and we have so many great questions. I have so many things that I want to ask about, and I have none other than Tony Weeks. Tony, thank you so much for coming on Global Fight Talk. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out, especially on Super Bowl weekend, Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's my honor. I appreciate you. You allow me to come on your show.
Yes, definitely. Well, you know what? While I was doing some research, I noticed something. I didn't realize this is that I didn't know referees had box recs.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a listing. Yeah, of every fight. Well, pretty much every fight that we've done from the beginning.
Yeah, I was looking you up and I said, oh, Tony Weeks used to fight. So I was trying to look at your fight record. I was like, no, this is what he refereed in the past, which is so cool. One of the things I wanted to ask is, how did you get started? Did you ever box when you were younger? Or is this something that you just, decided, oh, I just want to be a referee because I'm such a fan?
Well, it was a combination of things. I was more into martial arts coming up, growing up in Brooklyn. But at the time, of course, I was an Ali fan, and every time Ali fought, we would watch it either on closed circuit TV there, or on Wide World of Sports. Then afterwards, all the kids, we would gather around and put the gloves on, and we would box, But I was always into the boxing game, and I started when I was a supervisor at the federal prison. I was a recreation supervisor there, and we had an inmate there who was a boxer.
Hold on. Which inmate is this? Because there has been an inmate that's been in prison that is now famous, that's now a world champion.
Well, I can't name his name, but
okay.
No, he wasn't professional.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, we had one of the local trainers there, Willie Borchet. This was when I was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and he was interested in training the fighter when he got out. So I decided, since I was in the recreation department, I decided, maybe we can bring up a couple of fighters and put a little exposition in, and let the fighters get in there and box and entertain the inmates. And what I did was I brought some professional fighters in, and I got permission that the inmate could do a little boxing exhibition with one of the fighters. So I set it up, like it was. He had in the rec yard. We had to set up the ring in the rec yard and had the chairs all around it. And it actually looked like an actual boxing arena. Make a long story short, the guys got up there and they started boxing, and then it dawned on me and said, "Man, I need to get a referee," and I guess it was just more curiosity. I asked the trainer at the time, "Hey, you mind if I get up there and do it?" He says, "No, go ahead and do it." And I tell you, I got up there and it was like love at first sight. I mean, instantly, I fell in love with it. I said, "This is what I want to do," And one of the trainers, he passed away, Beto Martinez, and he at the end of the show, he asked me if I ever done that before. I said no. He says, "Well, I think you should do it. You got good natural movements." And he took it a step further and called the Arizona State Boxing Commission, and the rest is history.
Well, on your box rec, you have 835 fights that you have officiated, according to box rec. I'm sure we're not counting the other stuff that you officiated.
It's a lot.
Yeah, you do have a lot, and you have officiated a lot of fights that people are major fights, and one of the fights that everybody talks about is the Brown versus Jack, the Badu fights. There's a picture of you where you were just full, just covered in blood,
Yes.
And what were you thinking when that happened? Because when I saw his cut, it looked horrible.
Hmm.
And what were you thinking? I mean, you get to see these fighters, you're up close and personal with them. I
Hmm.
mean, in your mind, you're like, oh, damn. Are you cussing in your head like, play it cool, Tony?
Well, a lot of things go through your head when you're in the midst of the action, but yeah, that was a very, very bad cut. That was the worst cut I ever seen that I was involved in. The good thing about that cut was it was in the middle of the forehead,
Yeah.
so it was draining down the sides of his nose. It wasn't getting in his eye. Um, and the funny thing about it was I didn't notice the blood on me, but in between rounds, I'm standing in the corner. I can see the picture, and all of a sudden, I'm looking, and all the photographers are facing my way, standing up and taking my picture. And what's going on? And I look down, like, oh my god, all this blood on me. It was just crazy. But yeah, that was a very, very bad cut. I took him over to the doctor twice, and the doctor gave it an okay. And the second time when I took him over to the doctor, and the doctor says okay, you can hear me ask Badu, hey, do you want to continue? Because it was a pretty bad cut, but he wasn't hurt or anything. It was just a nasty cut.
Right, right. And that leads to my next question. A lot of these fighters, they don't want the fight to be stopped. They don't want a TKO on their record. Do they ever come up to you when you're giving them the rules and they're like, hey, Tony, don't stop the fight. Let me go all 12 rounds or until I'm knocked out. Don't stop the fight. Do they ever tell you that?
Well, when yeah, when you go in the dress room to give the instructions, you have some fighters and trainers. Hey, my guy, uh, he tends to take a lot of punches, but he'll be okay. If I'm hurt, don't stop it, whatever. Just like you said, and my response is, hey, first of all, it's my job to protect you, and it's your job to show me that you can continue to fight. So
Right.
I never take that into account. I just do my job accordingly.
Yeah, so like you said, a lot of their managers or their coaches, the fighters, they tell you, hey, don't stop the fight. But do you ever, study a fighter and know how they are or how they work, when they hurt or, that they bleed easily because a lot of, the cuts they've had in previous fights. Do you ever study their fight before you referee the actual fight? Do you ever study fighters like a coach studies their opponents?
Absolutely, absolutely. You want to know what the fighter his or her mannerism, how they take punches, how their fighting style. Some fighters are inside guys, some guys are just strictly boxers, movers, and what have you. And some guys, like I say, they're willing to take two or three shots just to get in to get that one shot. You see who's kind of a dirty fighter, using their head a lot or low blows or what have you. So yeah, I study, every pretty much every fight that I, officiate, that I can get films on, and I don't go into the fight with any preconceived notions or anything. I just it's just in the back of my mind, how this fighter style is.
Tony, I'm going to ask you this. Like I said, you refereed at 835. I don't. Did you know that you refereed 835?
I had no idea. I never keep count. Yeah.
Well, well, now you know. Global
Yeah.
Fight Talk told you you have
Yeah.
835 fights on your belt, under your belt.
Thank you. Thank you.
So out of those 835 fights, 35 fights, I know you don't remember all of them, but what was probably one of the most memorable fights you've ever refereed? Like,
Oh, without a doubt, Corrales-Castillo won.
yeah,
Uh, Historical making fight. Um, you know, um, to this day, people are still talking about that fight. Not only the fight, the round. It was the not only was the fight 2005 fight of the year, but it was the 2005 round of the year, and that dramatic ending really put an exclamation point on it. You know, yeah, both guys evenly matched. Both guys taking punishment, giving punishment, and it was a pretty much even fight up until that point. But that dramatic ending really, you know, put an exclamation point on it.
Does that fight ever remind you of another fight, maybe like a Gotti fight, one of those type of fights? Do you ever think back like, oh, that this fight reminds me of this other fight? I
You
mean, because it's
really,
action packed and they both dropped each other. And,
yeah,
do you ever think like that? Like, do you ever compare fights?
not really. You know, to me, that fight stands alone.
Right.
And you know, like you said, you know, you mentioned Ward Gotti. You know, those two guys were rock'em sock'em robots,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, somebody could fall at either time. And you know, some people say the fight should have been stopped, whatever the situation is. But the the Corrales-Castillo fight, it was just so tremendous back and forth action and a tremendous heart. Um, and you know, when you're going through it in real time, you really can't grasp what's really happening. But I mean, you know, this is a fight, but it really didn't grasp me until afterwards. And you know, everybody were uh, wanted calling me to give interviews and talking about it. It's all in the news, and it was just, you know, it was like, wow. I remember Richard Steele, the great Richard Steele,
Oh, yeah.
legendary referee, my mentor. You know, he told me, he says, you know, referees can go throughout an entire career and not have a signature fight. And I was blessed to have a signature fight with
Oh,
Corrales
wow.
Castillo.
Wow. And not speaking of referees, you did mention Richard Steele, but and there's Joe Cortez, but there's
Mm-hmm.
one particular referee that I enjoy watching.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so animated, and there's
Mm-hmm.
so many memes and videos of him, and that's Kenny Bayless.
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay.
do you
That's
ever
my,
do you, do you ever like look at his? I mean, when you're as a referee and you're watching a fight that you're not refereeing, but do you ever catch yourself looking at the referee other than other than the actual fight, just because that's what you do for a living?
well, yeah, Kenny's my man. You know, yeah, we all work great together, and you know, yeah, as referees, you know, we study each other, and we know each other's style and mannerisms and so forth. And yeah, there's times where you know, especially when you know Kenny's making a call or you know have to make some type of action in the fight. You know, where I'm looking at him and say that there's my man. He's doing it. He's doing it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy him. His facial expressions
Yeah.
says it all. There's times that I go back and watch the fight just to see his facial expressions. And I'm like, man, I can't imagine. I mean, sometimes, like with you, you have a poker face and
Uh-huh.
you're very serious in there.
Yeah.
And with Kenny Bayless, so you always wonder I wonder what Tony's thinking, when he just saw this knockout. But when Kenny's in there, you know exactly what he's thinking according to his facial expressions.
Oh yeah, yeah. He can be very animated.
I have some questions because you know that we are Facebook Live. We do have
Uh-huh.
someone on here who is watching. His name is Sav Maddox. His question to you is what's your opinion on people saying boxing is more dangerous than MMA because fighters don't get a 10-second count to recover and continue to take damage?
Well, you know, any combat sport is dangerous. Period.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, in mixed martial arts, you're dealing with a lot more weapons. Dealing with a different type of glove. You know, guys are getting hit with elbows, you get choked out, so forth and so on. You know, in boxing, you know, we try to implement um, a lot of things to help the fighters in terms of protecting them. You know, giving them that standing 8 count, or that's the time where we as referees can evaluate that fighter to see if they can continue or not, to see if they're able, if they see if they're alert. I mean, you go back to we talked about the Corrales Castillo fight. when Corrales went down twice. You know, and both times he went down, and I'm counting, I'm looking at him, and he's focused and he's ready to go. You know, so it's very crucial to implement these certain procedures that is the bottom line is for the safety of the fighters. You know, but in all combat sports, it's like they say, you don't play boxing or you don't play mixed martial arts. In all combat sports, there's always that danger.
You being a referee for boxing, do you ever think about doing that for MMA? Because you did say that that's where, you originally started, right? So
Yeah.
have you ever officiated an MMA fight, or do you ever think that's something you would want to do one day?
Well, actually, I judged the UFC fights.
Oh, you judge? Okay, see, I didn't
Yes,
know that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, we did some fights last night. Actually, yeah, I judged the UFC fights. Um, when the UFC first came back, they was looking into making me a referee, but at the time they really didn't want it because of the different mechanics. Like they say, MMA, you get knocked down, there's no standing 8 count. The referee doesn't summons the fighter to the fighter to the neutral corner. Um, so it was a little bit, it's different, yeah, and stuff. And when you officiate at a high level, you don't, you're used to doing something a certain way. You don't want to, make any mistakes in there, because if I'm doing if I'm doing an MMA fight and the fighter goes down and I react as a boxing referee, now we have a problem.
So, okay, so see, I just learned something new. I fight fans. I'm not perfect. I guess I didn't do my homework. But now that you've mentioned, I do have one more question that someone that's asking. But before I ask that question, as a referee for MMA, the rules are obviously different than boxing.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of fighters that say that they wish that the judges had some kind of, boxing or MMA background, because they seem to judge on a different level than, the fighters would if they fought in the past. What do you
Mhm.
say about that? Because there has been some judges that you're like, what are you looking at? Well, what were you looking at? It's just like, the scoring was just way off. Do you agree or disagree, or do you
Well,
just look at the rules that they gave you and you go by that, obviously?
well, first of all, officiating period is a tough job. It's not as easy as people think it is.
Mm.
But yes, if you're going to be judging MMA, you should have some type of not martial arts background, but martial arts knowledge of the game, what you're looking at, what the holes are, um, so you can better evaluate each round, as it goes on. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, these fighters, they work hard, they train hard, and as judges, as officials, we want to get it right. So if you want to be a judge, if you're going to be a judge, if you're going to be a referee, whatever, you study the craft, you study the rules and regulations, so exactly what you're looking at. Because you can get, like I say, there are some tough fights in there that can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
It's so your skills have to really come in at times.
Okay, I'm taking another question from somebody that's watching. His name is Lou. He is actually with a media outlet, with Clutch City Boxing. What's up, Lou? His question to you: in your opinion, who's the best boxer you've seen fighting in person?
Well, I really can't answer that because all the fighters that I've seen in person, I've either officiated or they're still fighting. So I really
You got
can't
to plead
answer
the fifth. You're just gonna plead the fifth.
that. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna plead the fifth.
But the best fighter that I haven't seen live but seen on TV, of course, my idol Muhammad Ali.
Yes, yes. Well, I had the opportunity to interview his daughter, Layla
Mhm.
Ali, but I've never had the opportunity to interview, Muhammad Ali.
Mhm.
But, going back to, saying, how judging and, refereeing is so hard to do. In boxing, they have where you can go back and replay the round. I'm going to bring up a fight that you judged that I saw, that I remember watching, and you issued out an apology when it was the Ward and Kovalev fights. You issued out an apology because you didn't see the low blows. Do you ever go back and think? I don't think at that time they had the replays, correct?
No.
No.
No. Yeah, no, we did. But let me say this. No, I didn't apologize. I didn't issue an apology.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
That was somebody who put a fake. It was a fake Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
okay.
No.
So you did not apologize for that.
No.
It was a fake tweet.
No.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What did you think about that fight? Did you see the low blows or?
Well, if you look at that fight, first of all, a lot of fighters wear their trunks high. Okay, and Kovalev had his trunks high. If you really go back and look at that fight, the first time I gave Ward a warning, hey, keep him up. It really wasn't low at all, and I just gave Kovalev the benefit of the doubt. But in my mind, see, as referees, we evaluate the situations as it goes along. In my mind, I was like, man, I don't think he could take it to the body, because the shot, it didn't appear that hard, But when you have these wide waistbands, just because the blow maybe breaks the plane of the waistband, doesn't mean if it's a low blow. Low is low. We know when something's really low, and there's a different reaction, physical reaction from a fighter when they're really hit low, as opposed when they get a good shot to the stomach. Once again, it's always a judgment call, and we have to make those calls, and we have to stick with them. Now, like I say, with the implementation of instant replay, yeah, you can go back and evaluate the situation to see if it was a knockdown, if it was a low blow, or what have you.
Sometimes I feel for the judges and referee, to be honest. I know that has to be very hard to do. So I commend you guys. Obviously, that was a fake tweet. I guess it was a fan who was upset and made a fake tweet and said that was you. But moving on, we have so many questions. There's a lot of people watching. They have like so many questions to ask, but we're going to move on. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, out of all the fights that you I know you talked about the Corrales fight, but what is probably one of the worst fights that you've refereed, whether it was the beginning of your career, the middle, or even the last fight that you refereed? What's probably one of the worst fights, and why?
Well, I wouldn't use the word worst. I would use the word tough.
Tough. Okay.
Yeah. And actually, I started in Vegas here in 2000. I got on in 2000. And my first big name fight was Bernard Hopkins and Antoine Eccles. It was a rematch. I had no idea, what type of fighter Bernard was, or Eccles was at the time. And Bernard, he could be pretty crafty in the ring. And I mean, it was live on HBO. Actually, it was on a Friday night because everybody was in town, because on the following night you had the big name fight with Tito Trinidad and Fernando Vargas. So everybody was at the fight. Anyway, Bernard goes through his antics, a little bit of low blow of this, that, and the other, and Eccles gets mad and he hits Bernard. Bernard hits him back, and all kind of melee going on. And I actually, like I said, I've never experienced that before as a referee, going through something like that, especially on live TV, HBO. And in my mind, I was like, Larry Merchant, they're going to have a field day on this one. It's like, but I finally end up taking a point from Bernard, and Bernard went on to finish the fight. I had to stop the fight, and I believe it was the 10th round. And at the time, the executive director was Mark Ratner, and Mark gets in the ring. And anytime Mark gets in the ring, is not necessarily some controversy, but he just wanted to make sure everything's okay. He was like, he told me like don't talk to anybody, just go straight to the back of the room, whatever, sit down. And I'm getting out there. First of all, Bernard comes over to me when after they announce his name, and I'm raising his hand, and he has this a hood on he used to wear as the executioner. Yes. And he whispers to me, "Sorry, I gave you a hard time." I'm like, "Oh, man." But anyway, I get out the ring, and I'm walking through a gauntlet of people yelling this, saying that, going, and I'm sitting in the back, and a couple of trainers come over to me and was like, "Hey man, that was a tough fight. That was a tough fight for anybody. You did a good job." And I'm thinking they just trying to butter me up, but wait, these coming from some trainers here. And then Joe Cortez comes over to me and says, "Man, that was he reiterates the same thing, that hey man, that was a tough fight." He said, for any referee, but it could be a blessing in disguise. And in actuality, it was a blessing in disguise, because it not only showed the people what I can do when I'm in a tough fight, it showed me what I can do when I'm in a tough fight. I came here as a professional referee, but that night I became a pro.
Yeah, definitely. Something that you said, you said you had trainers that said, "Hey, that was, you did good." And, like we talked about Joe Cortez, Kenny, Bayless, Richard Steele. Do you guys ever like pick up the phone and after their fight and be like, "Hey man, you should have done this. That was a bad call." Do you guys talk to each other like that, or do y'all just
absolutely, absolutely. It's important that we're honest with each other. Mm-hmm. Okay, you never want to fake it and oh, you did great. No, man, you messed up. No, or that was a bad call, or what have you. See, we as referees understand what it's like in that ring. Mm-hmm. So, when someone makes, it's like the average fan, when the referee makes a mistake, "Oh, you a bum, oh, you this, you that." No, we understand, that it can happen when you're in the midst of all this action. It's a fight, and it could be a lot of chaos going on, especially, before the pandemic, when you had, 15, 20,000 people in the arena, and, millions watching around the world. It's very tough. So, we as referees know and understand what it's like to be in the ring, and what it's like when you make a mistake and you made a mistake, and have to deal with it. So yes, no, we talk to each other, we help each other, we're a team. Okay, and there's a bond there, there's a strong bond there, because when it's all said and done, that's all we have is each other. And the thing about it is, I always say this, the general public, and this goes for any official, the general public they don't really look at us as being human. And what I mean by that is, we have to get it right every single time out, regardless of what, So once again, very, very tough job. But no, that communication, that bond that we have as referees, I mean, I'm talking about not only here in Nevada, but other states and around the world. People call you up, "Hey man, that was a good call," or "Hey man, tell me about that," whatever. Yeah.
Tony, there are some fighters that are known to be very mean, but yet they're so nice in person. And I don't know, it's just because of their personality, their persona. They're just trying to sell the fight. What fighters do you know personally that do that? I mean, I've talked to, some people, and they said, yeah, he may be an a-hole on TV, but the nicest guy behind closed doors. And I've heard several, which I was like, really? But, of course, I don't know them personally, so I can't sit here and judge, only what I see. Who do you know that does that? I mean, there's like Mayweather, there's Mike Tyson. There's just so many that you can name because they want to sell the fight.
Yeah, all the guys.
Really?
Mayweather, Mike, Pacquiao, De La Hoya, yeah, all the guys, yeah, are really Adrian Braun. All those guys are really nice outside the ring. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But once again, see, I understand as a referee, when you get in that ring, it's a totally different mentality. Same thing with me as a referee. I mean, I'm not meaning anything, but I have to be stern at sometimes, and my mindset is like I'm fighting,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because you're doing a mental fight in there. So yeah, a lot of times these guys want to sell the fight, or like I say, it's just a certain mentality when you walking down that ring, when that aisle, getting in that ring. Yeah, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mike Tyson came back after almost 2 decades to fight Jones. And it was obviously an exhibition. There was no knockdown rule. You couldn't knock each other out. Um, Mike looked good. Mike looked good, being at his age in his 50s, and so did Jones, and it went the distance. What do you say to people? I mean, not say, but what do you think about fighters coming back at that age and still wanting to fight? Obviously, this was just an exhibition, but what I found out is that when Tyson does another fight, it's not going to be an exhibition. It's going to be an actual fight. What do you think about fighters coming back at a later age? I mean, because, once a fighter, always a fighter, and they still think, sometimes you're too tough for your own good to say, I'm done fighting.
Yeah.
Come on, because when you
Yeah.
age, you sneeze, your ribs
Yeah.
come out of place. There's just certain things you can't do after a certain age.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said before, at any age, it's dangerous once you get in that when you get in that ring, when you get in that square circle. First of all, depending on where he fights, the state, they have to pass a physical examination.
Right.
Are they physically able to fight, mentally able to fight, to compete? Um, yeah, and there's always definitely a concern with aging fighters who may be still active, or fighters who want to come back uh, after so many years and get into the ring. There's always concern of the accumulation of punishment or blows that they have taken, throughout their career. And in boxing, all it takes is one shot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I'm all for someone wanting to do what you got that burning desire in you to do something, and you want to do it. I'm all for it, but as long as the safety procedures there are in place, that uh, uh, they pass the physical examination, that everything is good to go, and more importantly, like I say, that referee that's in there making sure that those guys, nobody gets hurt.
Tony, you also refereed women's boxing. And women's boxing right now, it's slowly, people are starting to accept women's boxing, not so much like MMA. MMA is a totally different
Mhm.
thing. That they love women's boxing. They're the main event sometimes, and on pay-per-view. What is it, in your opinion? You've been around it for so long, forever, it seems like. And what is it that women's boxing cannot get to where it's at right now? Being on pay-per-view, being the main event, especially if it's a title fight and it's not a main event, you got somebody who's just fighting, just a 8-10 rounder, and then you got the female fighters on the undercard who's fighting for a title. What do you
Mhm.
think is it? Is it because they don't like see women hitting each other, or
Mhm.
it's just because they are exciting?
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
some exciting fights.
Listen. Women's boxing has come a long way. Um, uh, when it first started, it was kind of embarrassing because, and it wasn't the women's fault, because there was no amateur programs, there was no amateur background, so they just coming in and fighting off the cuff. But it's come a long way, and of course, Ann Wolf, Christy Martin, Layla Ali. Jackie Joyner Frazier, all these
Lucia Riker. She's my favorite fighter.
Riker,
I love me some Lucia Riker.
Absolutely. I was going to name her. I was going to, but no, you had these pioneer women that really put women's boxing on the map, and really, I kind of disagree with you. I think it is accepted in the boxing field. In MMA is a little different because, like I say, is a different style of fighting. Okay, you have the grappling, you have the stand up, the ground, so forth and so on. But you got Clarissa Shields coming out, and a lot of other female fighters coming out, and hey, it's gonna rise. It's gonna it's definitely not dying, and like I say, it's definitely come a long way. And I think when you get more and more reputable fighters, reputable champions, it'll really have its own place.
You said something very interesting, like back then, like Ann Wolf, Layla Ali, Christy Martin era, they didn't have the amateur background like they do now. So the level of competition was, up here and down here. It was so lopsided. Ann Wolf, boy, she can fight. She definitely could fight. She definitely could fight. But they fought on TV back then.
Yes.
They were on the big cards. Everybody knew who they were. So I don't know what happened from back then when they were fighting till now, where it's now people are starting to know female boxers. I'm not too sure what happened because the level of competition is there now.
Yes.
They're the amateur background's there. You can now go to the Olympics. You could do so much now. So I'm not too sure why it's slowly going where it's going, but I'm glad it's getting there. Because back then with the level of competition, it just hit right away. And I don't get it. Like Clarissa Shields, she is the voice for women's boxing, because if you ask anyone, everyone knows who Clarissa Shields is. And matter of fact, she's getting ready because she did a live interview and she said boxing is dying. And so she is, and which I don't believe. I just don't believe that the pay for women and men, the pay scale is totally different. But she is now going to transition to MMA because she said MMA is where it's at. So now she is training to fight MMA.
Well, see, what you have to understand is in MMA, MMA makes the fights that the fans want to see.
Definitely.
Okay. There's no waiting around. There's no going through different sanctioning bodies, what have you. They're making these fights that the fans want to see. And that's what boxing needs to do. They need to make the fights that the fans want to see. It's very simple. Excuse me. People want to see these fights. Back in the day when we talked about Muhammad Ali, and even past that, before that, 15 rounds. These guys were fighting 2 or 3 times a year, and they were fighting each other, and you had a lot of 50-50 fights that really fan favorite. And that's what it, because we have the fighters out there. The fighters are out there, the champions are out there, and so it just needs to be put together and have these guys start to give the fans what they want to see.
Tony, I'm going to ask you a few more questions before we wrap this interview up, only because I could sit here and talk boxing and I'm like a little kid by the fire listening to your stories. So I could sit here and listen to all the stories that you have about boxing. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we wrap this up, only because it's Super Bowl weekend. The football is about to come on and people are barbecuing and ready to, watch this game. So I don't want to keep you too long. But the first question I want to ask is there a fight that you wish that you officiated, whether it's been from the past before you were even born, or back in the days like Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson days? Is there a fight that you wish from the past that you won, like I wish I refereed that fight, and why?
Absolutely. March 8th, 1971,
Oh,
Madison
wow.
Square Garden, New York City, the first Ali Frazier fight.
Oh, wow.
What an event. To this day, uh, I have never experienced the excitement and anticipation of a championship fight like that was. That fight, the world stopped. That fight was actually stopped to watch that fight. Two undefeated fighters, and of course, Ali being so colorful and with his antics and everything. Yeah, that fight I would have loved to be a part of.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, I said I'm going to ask you two questions, but I'm lying. I'm going to ask you three because I have to ask you three. So I'm going to name a few fighters and tell me what you think just on top of your head. And it could be the past or the present. Just top of your head, what do you think? Jack Dempsey.
Jack Dempsey, hard nosed, lunch pail type of guy. Started as a hobo and worked his way up the hard way. There was no Olympics. There was no, nothing to come. He just put on the gloves, got into the gym, and they were fighting pretty much for survival.
Okay. Thomas Hearns.
Thomas Hearns. Wow. What a beautifully built fighter. I mean, tall, lanky, with the reach and the power. He's
a trainer's dream. He is a trainer's dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, he was a threat. He's the type of fighter that could be a threat in any division and in any era.
Pernell Whitaker. I love Pernell Whitaker.
Rest in peace, brother. Yes. What a very elusive fighter. I mean, he had a style. He did it was a little bit illegal. You can't go below the waist. He would do that tactic every now and then. Yes. But his boxing skills were really phenomenal. He was just a special type of guy, special type of fighter.
Loved his footwork. Julio Cesar Chavez.
Julio Cesar Chavez, the Mexican legend.
Yes.
It's a blessing when you can have an entire country behind you. And when you look at Julio Cesar Chavez, you can only imagine the pressure that he's under, to please his country, to fight for his country. He possessed a wicked style of very hard punches. He can land one or two hard punches each round and wear you down coming into the later rounds. And that body shot, that left hook to the body was a killer.
Okay. So now we talked about the old school. We're going to come into the new era. As you can see, I have a signed autograph Corona, not that I'm shouting them out, from Errol Spence. So I got to have this. He is, from Dallas, Texas, where I'm from. What do you think about Errol Spence?
Tremendous talent, tremendous ability, beautiful mindset. Thank God that he's okay.
Yes.
Has a bright future.
Terrence Crawford, which you officiated. I think that was your last fight.
Yes.
That you officiated was Terrence Crawford, and that's a fight that everybody wants to see made between them two. Mm-hmm. I know Terrence does, so does he.
Same thing. Tremendous talent. Another one who's a special type of fighter, who's so gifted in so many different ways, and tremendous future also.
Two more. Lomachenko,
very beautiful footwork. I've done a couple of his fights, and he's faked me out as a referee. Very elusive fighter. Tremendous talent. He has some different boxing different training methods that helped him in the ring. And he's another special fighter that's going to be heard from again.
last one, the one who beat Lomachenko, which not that I wasn't surprised because he's so powerful and his work ethic is mad crazy, in which it was a great fight to watch, and he stopped his movement, and that's how he was able to win Teofimo Lopez. What do you think about him? I mean, he's something to reckon with.
Oh, absolutely. Another tremendous talent. You can see that he really studies his craft, and he has good natural power. You can't teach power. You can teach technique, but power you have to have. You have to be born with that. Great natural power, great mentality when he gets into the ring, and he just looks totally focused. Another bright future.
Tony, I greatly appreciate your time. I mean, like I said, I can keep talking to you about boxing. I have probably 1,000. I have like so many questions that I wrote that I haven't even touched yet. And hopefully we could do this again. And,
absolutely.
Yeah, because there's so many more questions I would love to ask you. But like I said, it is Super Bowl weekend, which I didn't know because I don't watch football. Yeah, I know. To me, if it's not fighting, it's not exciting. So that's how I see it.
I hear you. No, thank you so much. Once again, it's truly an honor. I appreciate what you're doing for the sport.
Thank you so much.
Putting these faces out there, hearing from these fighters, the trainers, the officials, and so they can get a personal side of someone. And it's like you were saying before, people can't believe, some fighters, they may be killers in the ring, but outside, they're really so nice. They're really, really good people. But yeah, we can definitely do it again. I really enjoyed it. You have some really good questions, some tough questions, but hey, I'm a referee. I get put on the spot all the time, so it doesn't matter.
You're ready for these questions. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I just don't like interviewing fighters. I like to interview the trainers, the referees, the judges, the people that make the fights, the people that make fighters. I just like hearing from them because there's another side to it other than just the fighters. So again, I greatly appreciate it. And Tony, I'm definitely going to take you up on that again. We are definitely going to do another interview. Thank you so much. For everyone that tuned in and asked questions, I'm sorry I didn't get to you, but maybe I'll message him and he'll ask and I'll post it. But for those that are watching, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and follow our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our Twitter page, Global Fight Talk. Again, thank you so much, Tony. And I'll be watching your next fight that you be officiating and said, hey, I talked to him.
Thank you. Shout out to Global Fight Talk.
Thank you, Tony. Have a good day.
Thank you. Do the same.
Bye.